Hello, you're very welcome to the Under Center podcast. This is AFI Weekly. Dara here with you, delighted to be joined as always by Rian Malloy. Rian, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks since I've been on, but I'm happy to be back. Great day we've had so far with the weather and with the announcement of the Irish NFL game. So, yeah, good day
Yes,
all around.
absolutely. Yeah, today there was an announcement at Dublin Castle. I was very lucky to be able to attend. It is official, September the 28th, half two kickoff, Crow Park. The Pittsburgh Steelers playing host to the Minnesota Vikings in the first ever regular season NFL game on Irish soil. A huge day, absolutely massive day, something to really look forward to now and to know for sure as well, because there's been rumors obviously since the game was officially announced back Super Bowl week of who it was going to be. There was rumors of the Steelers, or it's not the Steelers, rumors of the Packers. There was rumors that it could be a divisional game. It could have been, and this was the one kind of I hoped it was going to be true, which was Seahawks. Unfortunately, it wasn't true. But still, Minnesota Vikings team and a Minnesota Vikings team that is coming off a 14-3 season with so many interesting storylines as well, with the new quarterback in JJ McCarthy and what's going to happen there. And will they be able to continue the success of last year? And also with the Steelers story coming into this as well, what are they going to do at quarterback? Is it going to be Mason Rudolph? Is it going to be the rookie Will Howard? Hell, is it Aaron Rodgers still going to be involved? And obviously with the acquisition of DK Metcalf, and then also to go inside with the departure last week of George Pickens, this game has suddenly become so important, so interesting. And, as Irish NFL fans, we're so blessed to have two big sides coming over to play this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're two of the more storied franchises in NFL history, both with very interesting stories coming into this season. So, yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting one to watch for the for both teams. It's going to really be a litmus test. It's going to be pretty early on in the season. Both teams have a kind of uh, reputation for being tough teams to beat. So, yeah, we should be in for a belter.
Absolutely, we should. And I can't already counting down the days to it. For anyone that has asked, there has been a few questions today. I'm not sure when tickets are going to be on sale. The question was asked the press conference today. It wasn't answered indefinite. So if I was to make a guess, it will probably start the next month. If you go to, I think it's NFL.com/Dublin game, or NFL Dublin, I should say, you'd be able to register your interest so that you'd be able to be kept up to date there. So that'd be what to do there for the Vikings as well. Interesting that they're going to be playing two international games back to back as well, which is going to be an interesting experience because the Jaguars now did that, of course, just last season. So the Vikings agreeing to do it this year as well is great for international Vikings fans with two opportunities to see their team this year.
100%. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see how they cope with that. They're going to have. So when obviously the Jaguars did it, they had the same training facility the entire time that they were in London. This one is going to be a little bit different. Bouncing between countries. It'll be an interesting experience for them. So yeah, hopefully they can hit the ground running in both countries and come out of there with a couple of wins.
Absolutely. And look, there's going to be plenty of time to speak more about the NFL game in the lead up to it. We are going to switch over now more to the local game. Also, just before actually we do that, I should mention that there was a couple of questions asked about the local game. We will post them as the week goes on. Some very interesting things to hear, especially from Henry Hodgson, who is the GM of NFL UK. So it'll be interesting to hear his point of view on that. But we will stick to the local game. We had 4 games last week to review. Unfortunately, we don't have Alex here to look back at his game against the Minotaurs. A very good victory for the Mavericks in that one. We will, of course, look back at the absolute barn burner game that will happen in Newbridge as well between the Crusaders and the Rhinos. But we're going to start in the Premier Division, and we'll start with the game on Saturday, which was the Belfast Trojans 40, the Dublin Rebels 8. the Trojans put up another 40-point game at home following their game against the Knights last week, where they put up over 40 points. Dom Lynn had 5 passing touchdowns again this week. He didn't have the rushing touchdown to go with what he had last week, but 3 of those were to James Lynn, 1 to Michael Ferris, 1 to Rayshon Boswell, who also chipped in with a rushing touchdown of his own. The Rebels, scoring wise, Sam Doran connected with Jack Cronin late in the game for a consolation score for the Rebels. A game that was pretty much over at halftime, where it was 26-0. Trojans now on top with a perfect 5-0 record, and all roads lead to the 24th of May at UCD, where UCD will welcome the Trojans to Dublin, which is going to be maybe a precursor to the Shamrock Bowl. What do you think, Green?
It certainly feels like it at this stage. I think when we started the season, we kind of viewed the Premier Division as a race to the Shamrock Bowl as opposed to a race to try and win it, because we had already anointed UCD the champions at the start of the season. I think the Trojans are starting to change my mind a little bit on this one. We said that they started off with some relatively comfortable games at the start of the season, but they've also gone ahead and put up a big score against the Rebels, which the UCD team also did. I think they are now becoming contenders for this. The UCD need to watch their backs. It's not going to be a pushover in that May 28th or May 24th game, and it certainly won't be in the Shamrock Bowl if that's what it comes to. So yeah, look, they're doing excellently. One of the main concerns we had about them last season was their inability to score. They seem to have remedied that. Rayshon Boswell seems to have gone a huge way to kind of riding that ship. It's always a good thing to have a very dynamic running back in that backfield, certainly with the way the Trojans play the game, where they rely heavily on that running game. So yeah, look, I'm totally looking forward to that game, and yeah, we'll see what happens, because it certainly may be a precursor to the Shamrock Bowl.
Mm-hmm. And for, kind of predicting this season, I think a lot went into the Trojans, not struggles, maybe just coming up a little short on offense last year. Dom has had a preseason, obviously, to go through things and to improve the offense, and it looks like he has like 10 passing touchdowns in the last 2 games against teams that we would expect to, if not in the playoffs, to be definitely contending for one of those playoff spaces in the Knights and the Rebels, is seriously impressive. And obviously with Rayshon, that since he's come in this year, has made that running back position his own. Absolutely fantastic he has been for the team. But the fact that the defense as well in those last 2 games has, for conceded a combined 20 points is seriously impressive as well. They are a tough nut to crack that opposing offenses haven't been able to figure out yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great combo to have when both of your offensive and your defensive side of the ball are humming. The Trojans are just going to be building confidence and confidence and confidence. I'd say they're probably going to be the more confident team stepping out onto that field against UCD in a few weeks' time, because it's been a while since we've seen UCD properly get their teeth stuck into a playoff contender team, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it's just it's a great spot to be in for the Trojans.
Mm-hmm. And on the Rebel side of things, yes, a disappointing result. Obviously not one that sort of ends their season or is going to cause maybe a lot of alarm bells. Some maybe alarm bells in terms of, they couldn't stick with the Trojans. The fact that they weren't able to properly score on offense until late in the game is probably a concern too, especially if they still have those, and I'm sure they will still have those ambitions of making it to a Shamrock Bowl this year. This is the type of team, them in UCD, that they're probably going to have to face and beat if they want to get there.
Right, exactly. I think, yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. They will still be aiming to get to that Shamrock Bowl and obviously win it. But I think they are at a different stage in their development at the moment. than the Trojans are. Credit to them, they lost a lot of players in the off season. They've had to rework their offense totally. And they are producing some moments in games. So I wouldn't be too concerned about this one. Obviously, the juggernaut that is the Trojans at the moment is always going to be a tough game no matter who you are. So I'm sure there are positives to take from this game for the Rebels, and I think that's the way they should really be looking at it. Try and glean the positives out of this one.
Both next games for both teams. Like I mentioned, the Trojans travel to Dublin to take on UCD on the 24th of May. The Rebels don't have long to lick their wounds. They are in action this Saturday, and they're heading the opposite direction. They're heading down to Cork, take on the Admirals, which we'll get into a little more in the later half of the show. The other game in the Premier Division was on Sunday. This was another one-sided affair. This time it was the Belfast Knights coming out on top against the Craigavon Cowboys, 48 points to nil. Scoring-wise, Liam Moores in a second game back after injury had 4 passing touchdowns, 2 of them to Zach McDowell, 1 to Harry Salt, 1 to Marty Caskey. Zach McDowell had a passing touchdown of his own to Marty Caskey, and Callum McCurry had a rushing touchdown. And then to top off the scoring, there was a pick 6 as well from Isaac Searle. Of course, on the Cowboys, no scores to report, unfortunately for that. The Knights bounced back in pretty impressive form, Maureen, after their defeat last week to the Trojans, and look like they're close to cementing at least one of those 4 playoff spots.
It certainly looks like it. They've impressed me this season without, setting the world on fire. But this was a nice statement victory for them. Putting down a scoreline like that against the Cowboys is something that they should be expecting to do. Great to see Liam Moores back in the lineup, and great to see him connecting with Zach McDowell, who he replaced after coming back from injury. It's a really dynamic pairing to have on offense, and when you pair that up with Marty McCaskey as well out there, it's a great situation to be in. So look, the Knights looking very, very strong in this one. I don't have the standings in front of me, but I think they're pretty close now to kind of nailing on that 3rd or 4th spot at this stage.
Yeah, 3-2 currently in 3rd place on 6 points.
Right. So pretty impressive stuff so far. Those 2 losses obviously coming against 2 of the best teams in the league. So, or the 2 best teams in the league. So they've certainly stamped their name on this table so far. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes in the rest of the season.
Yeah, for the Cowboys side of things, another tough loss. They haven't scored since their first game against the Vikings, which was it's just 10 points in that game too. There seems to be serious issues on offense. Look, when you lose important players like Peter Loughran and Oren O'Kane, who lit up Division 1 last year, your team is going to obviously struggle on that side of the ball. This game against the Knights wasn't going to be the one that defines their season. In fact, the one that does is coming up this weekend, which of course we'll get into against the Panthers. But, a team that looks like it's a little low on confidence. It could be a lot more than a little, with, loss after loss, from starting so well and getting that first victory against the Vikings to, losing games. Now, not necessarily it's the losing that's the issue, because they came up against, you're talking about coming up against the Trojans, who they've lost to. They lost down in Dublin against the Rebels, and then they lost last week against the Knights. 3 playoff teams. It's not as if we are expecting them to win those games. But I think the concerning part for me and the worrying part is that these games have been 2-0. They're not scoring. Now, without being able to, not being able to, but obviously I haven't looked at the tape really in depth in terms of, is there drives that are just stalling? Is there 1 or 2 things maybe they're missing, or is it that It's just that there's issues on the offense that maybe if it was in Division 1, they could work through it. But in the Premier Division, when the level is such a step up that you really have no room for error and no room to sort of really grow an offense during a season.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there at the moment. I think it's going to be siege mentality for the Cowboys moving forward. It's survival at the minute. So they do not want to finish in that last place on the table. And they've certainly done a good job so far in terms of getting that first win. It's going to go a long way towards helping them survive this season. And like you said, the big game is coming up versus the Panthers next week. That's obviously going to be the one to watch. Alluding to what you said, it is very, very tough when you lose out on your two biggest playmakers from the season previously, particularly when you've made a step up to the Premier Division. So they will really be feeling that loss, but who knows? They might be back come next season. I don't know how things are going in terms of the flag football and how that's going to be going moving into the Olympic cycle. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, at the moment, it's just going to be survive for the Cowboys. And if they can get the offense rolling against the Panthers, maybe get a bit of confidence under their belt, they might be able to put together a few more scores towards the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. Next up for both teams, like I mentioned, the Cowboys travel to Dublin to take on the Panthers. That is this Sunday. At the same, it's this very next week, I should say. The Knights are actually also going to travel down to Dublin to take on the Panthers as well. So, interested, both teams taking on the Panthers in the space of a week. Moving into Division 1, let's start with Saturday's game. That is Kildare Crusaders 28, the West Dublin Rhinos 35. Scoring side of things, Jordan Farrell had 2 passing touchdowns on the day, one to James Ahern, one to Ben Costello. Wello had 2 rushing touchdowns of his own. For the Rhino side of things, Craig Usher had 4 rushing touchdowns, and Ethan Foster contributed with a rushing touchdown of his own. The game, in a word, is crazy. A game that, despite finishing 35-28, was only 7-6 at halftime. The second half kind of was just a scoring fest. The Crusaders took over the scoring in that sense. They were 28-14 up at the end of the third quarter, going into the fourth, but that's when the Rhinos sort of came back, scored 21 unanswered. The defense figured out whatever they needed to figure out in terms of stopping Jordan, stopping Wello, stopping that offense, which had been able to, score on them. On the offensive side of things, you see that the rushing attack really took over. Doing the stats there the other day, I think I looked at about, I think it was over 300 yards rushing on the day for the team. Craig Usher contributed with about 148 of them himself to go with his 4 rushing touchdowns. So a game won on the ground by the Rhinos. I think that in previous games, maybe previous seasons, the Rhinos, when they were down 2 scores at halftime, could have maybe just said, that's it. Let's move on. There's another week. But I must say that I have to commend every single one on offense, defense, special teams. They all dug in. And they all knew what we had to do. We all knew we had to score and stop them. And that's exactly what we did. And to get a priceless victory in pursuit of obviously one of those playoff positions and hopefully going to another Heart Bowl this year. And, this game is huge in terms of not just getting the win, but also getting the head-to-head over the Crusaders, which could be vital when it comes to playoff places.
Absolutely. I mean, I can only imagine what the atmosphere was like in that dressing room after that victory. That's the sort of result that very much galvanizes a team moving forward. It's going to be something that you can look back at the end of the season and say, this is where things started going right for us. It's obviously a difficult task to slow down Jordan Farrell and that passing offense. And I think traditionally the Rhinos have maybe struggled a little bit more against the pass game than the run game. So they did a great job in that second half, slowing them down, or maybe more so the fourth quarter, slowing them down in that respect, and just rallying to get that victory is just an unbelievable bit of confidence boosting, morale boosting, just excellent locker room vibes. So yeah, it's a great win for the Rhinos.
Yeah. And look, with the changes that has been made, especially on the offensive side this year, with sort of new schemes, obviously rookie quarterback coming in, and Kevin, who will say he commanded the offense incredibly on Saturday as well, was very calm under pressure. You see the stat line, you think, well, 5 rushing touchdowns, how much did he contribute? He's at the line. He knows what he's seeing and what he needs to do. He is adding in with passing plays when he needs to, but he's really grown from week 1 now to game 1 to game 5 this week is, and with him continuing it there, I think we're going to have a very fruitful future as a team. On the Crusaders side of things, I made comments that I wasn't too sure what sort of team this was in previous games. I said that it seems that Jordan and his receivers just hadn't been able to build that rapport that he had with previous guys, the likes of Sidney Pindy and stuff like that, who've moved on. But I must say that it was an awful lot better. The break between games, between that Eagles game to here, you could see that they've been working on things, that they've been able to work out scheme wise, get that timing down and better too. So it's not a doom or gloom, sort of result for the team on Saturday. It makes playoffs tougher, but they still sort of have it in their own hands. They're still going to play teams around them. I think they have, I believe they have the Giants this week, then the Mavs, and then they finish up with the Vipers. So definitely in their own hands to make playoffs. Just have to get the wins. And, once you're in, who knows what could happen.
Right, exactly. And I think that's going to be the mentality for the Crusaders moving forward. It's been a real mixed bag in terms of the results for them so far this season. But when you look at the standings, they're still sitting there in 4th place. They're still sitting there in that playoff spot as we stand. So, yeah, look, anything is possible. My mind goes back to, the kind of time that the Mavericks spent in AFI 2, where they beat the brakes off everybody and ended up not winning the bowl that season. So anything is possible when it comes to playoff football, and I think that's where the Kildare Crusaders should be focusing their thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Like I mentioned, the Crusaders' next game is at the Causeway Giants. And then for the Rhinos, it's that's Saturday. Then on Sunday, the Rhinos make the trip to Wexford to take on the Eagles. So I think, I cannot confirm because I haven't actually done the match yet, but I think if the Rhinos win Sunday, that is playoffs confirmed. I'll have to double check that though, so don't take my word for it. It's not gospel. On to the other game, the last game of the weekend. It was a top of the table clash between 2 undefeated sides in Division 1. The Loud Mavericks 48, the Westmead Minotaurs 7. On the Mavericks side of things, Ty Henry had just the 6 passing touchdowns this week. 2 to Brendan Sims, 1 to Declan Mulville, Grant Shute, Nathan Hardy, and Finn O'Donovan. Grant Shute also contributed with a rushing touchdown as well. For the Minotaur side of things, Domas Vidas, I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong, had a kickoff return for a touchdown in that game. A commanding victory for the Mavericks, who are going from strength to strength, scoring at will, and the defense stopping teams and not allowing them to even get close to them.
Yeah, I haven't seen the touchdown leader so far this season in AFI 1, but I'm pretty sure I know who's up at the top of that list. I think this is maybe 3 games in a row.
Yeah.
You can probably. He's had 6 touchdowns. It's impressive to see in AFI 1. They've just been going from strength to strength. They look unstoppable at the moment from the Minotaur side of things. a little bit of a disappointing result. I would expect them to be able to move the ball a little bit better, considering their pedigree in the Premier Division. They obviously have a superb rushing attack as well to lean on, and it looks like they weren't able to use that efficiently in this one. So yeah, a little bit disappointed to see the Minotaurs couldn't put it up to them. But like we said in the previous game, both of these teams will be likely looking to make the playoffs. Both of these teams know that anything can happen in playoff football.
Yeah, actually, just looking at the stats there, I believe Ty Henry is the passing touchdown leader in the whole country across 2 divisions. So that can just tell you how well Ty has been playing so far. And that is only with 3 games? 3 games played? Just double check here.
Four
Sorry,
games.
4 games. 4 games played.
Yeah.
4. Yeah, sorry, they're 4 from 4. Yeah, like you mentioned on the Minotaurs, a disappointing game for them, especially on offense. They did lose their running back, Rafa Montero, as well, due to an injection in the first half too. Which wasn't obviously great for them. The defensive side of things like that, they couldn't defend Ty in the air. They actually did a pretty good job, I must say, on the ground of stopping it, despite Grant's run for a touchdown, which was a massive one. I think it was about 60-yarder. So he broke out and just wasn't going to get caught after that. But yeah, a tough day at the office for the Minotaurs. They're going to have to brush themselves off. They have a week's break. They're back in action on the 25th of May, which they will be at home to the Stags. The Mavs also have a week off before they welcome the Causeway Giants to Dundalk the day before on the 25th of May. So just the standings then before we move on. Like we mentioned in the Premier Division, the Trojans are top 5 from 5 with 10 points. The UCD are second, 4 from 4. The Knights command third spot. They are 3 and 2. And the Rebels, despite the loss at the weekend, still remain in 4th place. They are 2 and 2 from their 4 games. The Cork Admirals are 1 and 3. To go with the Craigavon Cowboys, they're 5th and 6th. And then at the bottom of the table, the Vikings in 7th, Panthers in 8th, both on 1 point. In Division 1, the Mavericks, like we mentioned, 4 from 4, 8 points. The Minotaurs are also on 8 points, 4 and 1, but of course they are second because they lost the head-to-head against the Mavericks. The Rhinos are 3 and 2. They are 6 points in third spot. The Crusaders are in 4th spot themselves, 2 and 3 on 4 points. The Vipers are as well. They are 2 and 2 on 4 points. Then following up is the Eagles, 1 and 2. The Giants, 3 and 1, and the Stags also 3 and 1. Before we move on to the previews for our next games, I should mention that this show and every show this season is brought to you by Rain Rocks Web Design. They are the team behind UCP.ie. That's where you go to find the latest league tables that I just read out there. You have the fixtures on that too. You have our previous shows if you want to catch up on any of them as well. So please head over to ucp.ie. Also, while you're at it, follow us on the show socials at UnderCenterPod on Instagram and Twitter, and also on TikTok as well. That's where you'll find all sort of some action from games, results, fixtures. We'll have a lot of videos taken from the NFL Dublin game announcement this week as well. So make sure you follow us on the socials too. Moving on to this weekend's games, we have 2 in the Premier Division, 3 in Division 1 to look ahead to. Let's start with the Premier Division, and on Saturday it is the Cork Admirals who are 1 and 3, like I mentioned, against the Rebels who are 2 and 2. This game is going to go a long way towards who's going to finish in the playoff position. Looking at how the Knights played and looking at how they are at the moment, they look to me like they're going to seal 3rd place. So this game between the Admirals and Panthers, Admirals and Rebels, I should say, could be the game that might possibly seal 4th place for one of these teams. What do you think?
Absolutely huge game for both sides in this one. Both maybe starting out a little worse in terms of record than they would have liked to be, but there is signs of life in both of those teams. Tough week for the Rebels to be coming off such a tough game and moving straight into what is a pivotal game in the season. The Admirals, on the other hand, have had a little bit of time off to rest, regroup, get things going on the training field. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, and it's tough, to make a judgment as to how this is going to go because we have not seen these teams kind of face against similar opposition. It's been a little bit different for both sides. So yeah, it's a tough one to call.
Yeah. Okay. Let's we'll have a little more chat about it because with the Rebels, they obviously started out poorly against UCD. They've found their offense in previous weeks, struggled last week against the Trojans. Whereas on the Admiral side of things, their offense only really started moving that last game against the Panthers. What do you want to see from both offenses? Start with, say, even the Admirals. They've struggled against other teams like the Trojans, UCD. Who's the other team that they faced? I think that's all. Who's the other team that they faced? The Knights. The Knights as well. Offensively, they struggled against all three of those teams. Top three teams in that sense as well. So if they want to be one of those four teams, they're really going to have to turn on the offense against a team that, like we mentioned, they're going to have a battle against for this fourth spot. Seeing it up close on a couple of weeks ago against the Panthers, you could see that there has been changes. They're still trying to get Jake more comfortable, I think, in the pocket throwing the ball. And when he breaks out and he's on his feet, it's very hard to stop him. It's just keeping him in that pocket and sort of maybe just getting the passes going, I think, is one thing that they want to be a little better at. But, I'll go back to the original question then, Rian. The Admirals offense, we saw them there, I guess recency biased in terms of putting points on against the Panthers. What is it that we have to see this weekend to give them the best opportunity to beat the Rebels?
They need to make sure it wasn't a one-hit wonder versus the Panthers. They need to show us that they can competently run the ball. I wouldn't be looking for them to run up a score or anything against this Rebels team because they still have the bones of a good team out there. But they will need to show us that the offense can put together drives consistently and long drives as well. So I would like to see the running game help out. I'd like to see some maybe shorter progressing routes being called by the offensive coordinator. And just really moving the ball, shorten that game, make sure they put themselves in the best position to win versus what can be a scrappy Dublin Rebels defense.
Yeah. And like you said, on the Rebel side of things, they have been able to move the ball and score points recently. Although they found it difficult against a Trojans defense, the same Trojans defense, that kept the Admirals to only one score as well in their game. So, and an Admirals defense that only kept the Trojans to two scores. So if you want to compare in that sense between the Rebels and the Admirals, where the Rebels gave up more points, this Admirals defense is going to be very, very tough to play against this week. And, they're going to have to rely on, Tommy Breslin has been contributing with scores these past few weeks, Pete McMahon at running back is going to have to run the ball well. Same with Andre Barlafa. Sam Doran is going to have to make sure he's composed in the pocket and knows to make the right decisions when to leave the pocket and run, because he's someone that is dangerous with his legs as well. This game could be a case of who scores last wins.
100%. Yeah, I think you might be right there. For the Rebels, I think they're gonna need to know when to take their shots in this game, because the Admirals' defense this year has been pretty stifling, as they are most seasons. So it's going to be important for them to be situationally aware, realize when to take the shots. Like you said yourself, the quarterback needs to know when to break out and when he can use his legs efficiently. But I think you might be right, to be honest, because both of these teams, that one is struggling on offense, the other is a powerhouse on defense. It may very well come down to one kick at the end or maybe a late touchdown.
Okay, give me predictions then, Rain. Who are you going with this week?
I'm going low scoring, and I'm going to go with the Admirals by one score, maybe 3 points in it.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'm going to go against you here, and I'm going to go with the Rebels. I think that although the fact that it wasn't a good week last week, and they'll be the first to tell you that they had a pretty bad week against the Trojans last week. They've shown in the previous games that they seem like they have an offense clicking with all the changes, obviously, in the off season. You know, there's some defensive stalwarts there still in that team, with the likes, of course, of Kenny McCarthy there, that will still anchor that defense. I think I think it's still going to be a bit of a high scoring game. I'm going to go with let's see. Both teams like to go for two, so they don't really kick. So what are we looking at? 26 points to 22. I'm going to go for a Rebels win on that one. On to the other game in the Premier Division, and this is more matters at the other end of the table. The South Dublin Panthers, who are 0-3-1, welcome, and the 1-3 Craigavon Cowboys to Terranure. A huge game for both teams. A game which could determine a team's safety in the Cowboys if they were to win this game, or could possibly, not, I don't want to say the R word, but could possibly relegate the Panthers if they don't win this.
I think, yeah, it's pretty much a must win for the Panthers. I know they still have a couple of games to go, and they are tied with the Vikings at this point of the season, but they need to make sure that the football they're playing is what determines their ability to stay in the Premier Division. So that means getting a win this week against a Cowboys team who have admittedly been struggling themselves. Like you said yourself, they haven't scored in quite a while. So that's going to be the key point for the Cowboys, is to get off the board, get some points against this Panthers team, who I think will even admit themselves have been a little bit leaky on the defensive side of the ball. So yeah, it's an intriguing battle. Maybe not at the right end of the right end of the table for both teams, but certainly one that will be interesting to watch.
Yeah. Like that we mentioned about the Cowboys struggling to score. You know, this is where I worry for the Cowboys, in the sense where the Panthers have shown, even in the defeats, that they can move the ball, they can score. Yes, are the consolation scores, of course. Our teams maybe, taking their foot off the gas a little bit on defense for these scores? Maybe. But the fact that they can score can give that team confidence to think that we can at least outscore the Cowboys in this sense.
Yeah, I think you might be right there, to be honest. The Panthers will be looking at this game certainly as a winnable game. It's not going to be at all daunting to them, with the amount of experience that they have out there as well, being in the Premier Division for as long as they have been. The Cowboys obviously having that season down in Division 2. I think their players are going to be more ready for this game in terms of their just overall ability to deal with what gets thrown at them. So yeah, I think the Panthers will be looking at this as a game that's certainly winnable.
Mm-hmm. Go on, give me your predictions. Who is winning this game? Panthers or Cowboys?
I'm going to go with the Panthers on this one. As much as they have disappointed me this season, I'm going to go with the Panthers. And I think they're actually going to have a pretty impressive victory. So I think they're going to get, let's say, 28-7.
Okay, big win. Big win for the Panthers. Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you in terms of the winner. I think the Panthers, the fact that they're at home as well, I think is going to be a big thing. Um, the fact that the Cowboys are just not scoring it's a huge red flag. It's absolutely massive. I can't get over that. Like if you're not scoring in games, how you're obviously never going to win.
But
But they did score against the Vikings, a team that, and they did win against the Vikings in a team like, that they are vying for position with. It's tough, especially with a short turnover, especially that the Panthers have had 2 weeks as well to get ready for this game, despite the reported turmoil that happened last week as well. It seems as though they are still able to play this year, and they are still intend to play the games, which I'm absolutely thankful for. That I want to make sure that we start with 16 teams, we finish with 16 teams. But I think this will be enough. I think the Panthers can do enough, especially if Connor Hoskins is there and he's fit, especially if Luke Carey is there and he's fit. I think that they do have enough then in that sense to beat the Cowboys. And then it comes down for the Cowboys for that return fixture against the Vikings, which is going to basically be the deciding game in terms of who will finish bottom of the table this year. So I'm going to go with a Panthers win as well myself on that one. Into Division 1. 2 games Sunday, 1 game Saturday. Let's start with the Saturday game. That is the Causeway Giants 0-3-1, welcoming the Kildare Crusaders 2-3 to Lyon Park. This game finished very close last year, or not last year, early on this year, I should say, in Kildare. Where are my results? Yeah, the Crusaders coming out 23-14 winners against the Giants in that game. So the Giants will be looking to get a modicum of revenge in this fixture last season in Lyon Park. The Crusaders came out easy winners in that. So, there's history in this fixture for sure. The Crusaders will want to bounce back as quickly as they can. For the uh, Giants, too, they want to bounce back. They will probably feel that with their drawn game against the Stags the week before, that they should have won that game. And look, for a Giants team that is 0-3-1, to have a points differential of -17, to have not and to have 3 losses on the board, it's better than the Rhinos, who are in third. It's better than the Vipers, who were in fifth. It's better than the Eagles, who are a spot above them. They've just have not had the rub of the green go their way in these close games, and I'm sure they're betting, and I'm sure they're thinking that they are about due now to have the tide turn and get a bit of luck on their side.
yeah, they really do, because this could have a snowball effect. When results start going against you, it's very difficult to pull yourself out of that slump. And the results certainly have been going against them so far this season. I think probably the one that stings the most is that tie versus their neighbours up north in the Stags. But yeah, look, this is an opportunity to ignore all that has come before. If they come out with the victory in this one versus the Crusaders, then it's a whole new season, Then they're in playoff contention. Then they can go ahead and look towards the next games in the season and basically look to win them out, and hopefully head towards the playoffs. But it is very, very important for them to win this game.
Yeah. Absolutely. A Crusader side of things, it's also a must win for them, because if they want to make sure that they are still in that playoff picture, these are the games that they're going to have to win. You know, I mentioned how many games we have left. This game, the Mavs game, and the Vipers game. That's it. They cannot
All tough
afford any more
oppositions.
mistakes.
Yeah,
All tough. Um, all like I know the Giants aren't in a playoff position at the moment, but they still think that they have a chance for playoffs. You have the Mavs, of course, who are unbeaten. You have the Vipers, who are right there in playoff contention as well. So, you know, if you want to do manager speak at the moment, you could say they're in 3 finals right now.
absolutely. Yeah, they need to go 1-0 every week until the end of the season to really give themselves, well, not a shot. They obviously have a shot. They can lose here and there, but like I said previously, you want your football to determine your standings at the end of the year, not somebody else's. So if you go ahead and win those 3 games coming up, then yeah, that's what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But
Give me
yeah, it's going to be an interesting one.
give me a prediction. Who's winning?
I think with the way that Jordan Farrell has started firing a little bit on all cylinders, Wello's obviously running the ball quite well at the moment. I think that the Crusaders have enough in them to get by the Giants this week, and I think it's going to be relatively comfortable. 2 scores somewhere around the 28-14 mark.
Right. Okay. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I think I can. I think I smell an upset on the horizon on this one. I think that the Giants have had this time off to get their game plan ready for this Crusaders game. I mentioned 3 finals for the Crusaders. The Giants are in 4 finals now.
Yeah.
You know, the Giants have the Crusaders. They have the Mavs to come up. They have the Rhinos, and they have the return fixture against the Vipers as well, I believe. So, or no, Eagles. They still have to play the Eagles. Sorry, that's the other game. Is the Eagles? Am I right? Am I wrong? I have to.
I
I'll
think
have to
you're
get
right.
the. Yeah, I'll have to get the schedule up in front of me just to make sure that I'm totally right. But you know what I mean, though. So like they are in these finals themselves. It's not just the Crusaders. Yes, it's the Eagles. Is the other thing. Is the other game. Eagles are in order. Obviously, it's Kildare, Mavs, Rhinos, Eagles, and the 2 games at home are the Crusaders and the Eagles, and then the 2 away are the Mavs and the Rhinos. So they're in 4 finals of their own if they still want to have that belief of getting that playoff spot too. So yeah, I don't know. I think the Giants, they were able to pull off the shock in the plate last year. I think that maybe they can do it again this week, and I think that they can try and get their, like you said, get their season started again and see what can get into the next game then in a week's time against the Mavs and see what they can do then against them. So I'm going to go with a surprise um, Giants victory in that. Lads, I don't mean, hopefully I'm not disrespecting you guys by saying surprise. I'm going only by record. That's it. That's why I'm saying it's surprise. On Sunday, we will start with the Stags are at home. They are at home, aren't they? Because I just realized in my notes I put Stags down twice.
I
The
saw that
Stags
myself.
are yeah. The Stags are at home. They welcome the Vipers, who are 2-2, to New Forge. Of course, in the reverse fixture of this game, the Vipers came out 34 points to 8 winners. So the Vipers know how to beat the Stags. The Stags, getting their first point as a football team a couple of weeks ago against the Giants, will be looking to take that next step in getting that first win. What do you think, though, in this game, Reen? It's a fascinating matchup between 2 sides that look possibly can be on the way up in different ways.
Yeah, 100%. I think the main thing about this game, when you're comparing it to the previous game that they played this season, is that the Stags are going to look completely different in this game than what they did in the first game of the season. They've been finding themselves the entire season, building around the culture of two teams and trying to piece together what works well for them. It's a whole different ball game in this one. So I think that gives the Stags a little bit of an advantage going into this one because they'll have tape on the Vipers. They'll have experience from playing the Vipers. And I don't think the Vipers are going to change their tactics too much in this one, considering the rip-roaring victory that they had in the previous game. This is one that smells like a sneaky upset to me. And like you said yourself, upset only in the sense that we're seeing two teams with two totally different records come up against each other. The Stags will have unbound confidence from their previous tie with the Giants. This season was all about survival for them, and now they have a point on the board. So it's they have a freedom to play whatever way they feel like between now and the end of the season, and hopefully that works in their favor.
Mm-hmm. Give me a prediction then on this game. What do you think? The Stags and the Vipers.
I think it's going to be very, very close. Maybe 2 points in it. Let's call it 16-14.
Okay. I'm going to go with a Vipers win on this one. I think that they're two South African guys that they have. I believe it is Christian. I have the names. AJ Ghost and Christian Grobler have been absolutely fantastic running the ball from them this year. And I think Christian had 4 touchdowns of his own actually in that reverse fixture. So if these lads are there this week, I worry for the Stags a little bit in that sense because these guys are just, once they get ahead of steam, almost impossible to stop. Alex will tell you himself he had to deal with them a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to go with a Vipers win on that. And for them to make things very interesting as well, if they go to 3-2, when it comes to getting some of those playoff spots, it's going to be incredible to see if they can actually hold on to them as well. Because for them, if we look at their fixtures after the Stags, they have a week's break before they head down to Wexford to take on the Eagles, which if they win on Sunday, will think that they can win down in Wexford. They then are at the Minotaurs and then they finish up at home to the Crusaders. That game could be so tasty. At home to the Crusaders, final week of the season, winner goes to the playoffs. That's going to be a game not to miss for sure. I will miss it because I'm not going to go up north to Derry to watch it. I'm very sorry. I've done my Derry trip this year. I'm not doing another one. The last game of the weekend, and that is the Wexford Eagles, who are 1-2, are playing host to the West Dublin Rhinos, 3-2. Again, we talked about in the Premier Division with the Admirals and Rebels, these two teams facing each other could mean who gets in the playoffs, who doesn't. Same thing here in this scenario. You know, although the Rhinos had a very good victory against a playoff rival last week, if they don't win this game, you know, they could make life an awful lot harder for themselves.
100%, and it's a little bit of an unknown going in against an Eagles team who have only played 3 games this season. It's tough to know what they're going to be about in this game, considering the oppositions that they've played against so far. Very tough one to call, to be honest. I was relatively disappointed with some of the results that the Eagles have had so far, but I've also been impressed by some of the results that they've had so far. So they really are a team that has a lot of questions to answer. So yeah, this weekend will be an interesting opportunity to see if they can answer those questions.
Yeah, it's an absolutely vital game for the Eagles because, you know, they would argue, and I tend to agree with them, that the first half of the season has been their toughest part of the season. They started off away to the Mavericks. Then they had an away game against the Minotaurs. They had their only home game of the year so far against the Crusaders, which they won. And then they were also meant to face the Mavericks again at home, obviously due to a waterlogged pitch at Easter weekend. They weren't able to fulfill that fixture. They can in the future, remains to be seen. That's going to be a contentious one. If it doesn't go ahead, especially if it determines seedings and playoffs and whatnot. But after the Rhinos game, like I mentioned, they have the home game against the Vipers. They have let me just see here. Where are they? Where is my stuff? They have an away game at the Giants. They have another away game at the Stags as well. So they have what in their minds would be very winnable games. And if they can get a result on Sunday, they are suddenly in the driving seat for one of those vital playoff spots.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the great thing about AFI 1 is that it is so close this year in terms of those playoff spots. Obviously, the Mavs are out in front in terms of their number 1 overall seed, but beyond that, it is a very, very tight league all the way through until the bottom. So yeah, it's a really, really tough one to call. Like you said yourself, they've played against some really tough opposition so far. My only thing would be, though, that the Rhinos are coming into this game, like I said, with a huge amount of confidence off the back of that win that they had last week. They don't have to sit around and let everything settle down. They can just move right into the next week and keep that kind of positivity rolling. So if the Rhinos can get a couple of scores on them early doors, I would have a certain amount of fear in terms of how they're going to come back from that.
Mm-hmm. And it is interesting, obviously, because with the issues that the Eagles have had this year with numbers has been obviously well established. I think, a little over 20 has been on the sidelines for a lot of their games this year, but it hasn't deterred them in their effort levels as well, culminating in that 28-22 victory against the Crusaders a few weeks ago. Like that, because of their called off game, they've had a lot of time to practice. They've had a lot of time to prepare. They've had a lot of time to watch tape. You could say that probably that they should be the most prepared for this game out of any other game this year.
Yeah, I mean they've had a lot of time to look forward to it, like you said, and they'll be chomping at the bit to get going on this one. To be honest, being so long without football is tough. So as good as reps can be in training, they're never live game reps, and they never come to that level. So yeah, they'll be chomping at the bit to get going on this one.
It's almost a full month. Their last game was the 13th of April.
Right, so there you go. Yeah,
it's a full month. So even it helps bodies that have been maybe banged up a little bit to recover plenty of time. So they should be raring to go on that game on Sunday. Ryan, you are the lone wolf on this one. Give me a prediction.
I am going to take your Rhinos in this one. I think it's going to be another barn burner. I think it's probably going to be somewhere in the region of 35-33.
Okay. Thank you very much. The check is in the mail to you, sir, for that. Really appreciate it. Okay, perfect. I think that's actually all the games. It's all the games previewed, reviewed, everything viewed. Even had time to talk about the NFL coming to Dublin. That is a pretty good show, I think, Rain. And it's like you never lost. You were a couple of weeks out, we've come back in, and it's just like riding a bike. You were just straight into it. Game ready, exactly. So that's where we're going to wrap up this edition of the show. Thank you very much, Rain, for hopping on this evening. Really appreciate it. Alex Sims, I hope you enjoy your holiday, bud. Unfortunately, that's why he won't be here next week either. So hopefully we'll have just myself and Rain again, special guest. Who knows? Might put the feelers out there to see who wants to come on the show. Like I mentioned, follow us on the socials at Undercenter Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Just search for Undercenter Podcast on TikTok. If you're watching us on YouTube here right now, we'd really appreciate it if you could like this video, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel while you're at it too. And let's get those numbers up and try and get the good word of the AFI out there for all to see. Before I also sign off, we should say we do have another outro video for you tonight. If you are on the socials around AFI Media, you would have seen that a Cork Admirals player, Matt Sibioni, I should say, put together this absolutely fantastic AFI themed Madden intro video. So as if you were having an AFI game. He did it last year as well, which is absolutely fantastic. He was really good to send me on the video for this one. What's this here? We give up 30 again, Beach. That is absolutely right. That's in relation to the Rhinos. And that is true. If we do give up 30 again, Beach will kill us. So we're going to have to make sure that we don't, or at least try our best that we don't. But like I mentioned, this is a special video from Matt Sibioni. I really appreciate him sending the video on and the great work that he's put in. But until next week, stay safe and we'll see you soon.